Good evening. I'm John Bachman in for Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. We have some breaking news to begin this hour on day 42 days into this partial government shutdown. President Donald Trump has directed DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin to pay TSA workers. As of today, they've missed their second full paycheck. The Senate voted unanimously to move forward on a deal to reopen most of the Department of Homeland Security, but it came with a catch. Republicans agreed, at least for now, to some Democratic demands. The deal leaves Immigration and Customs Enforcement unfunded and parts of Customs and Border Protection unfunded too. Then the twist. House Republicans, well, they've refused to take this up. They've scrapped the plan and shifted now to a continuing resolution idea instead. That means they're going to try to pass a funding bill with a simple majority, cutting Democrats out of the process. Moments ago, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer said a vote is expected in the House tonight related to that short-term bill to fund DHS. Let's get out to Congressional correspondent Kilmeny Duchardt, who's been trying to keep on top of all the new information. She joins us live now from the Hill. Kilm, it didn't sound like House Speaker Johnson was very happy, not too happy with the news from the Senate.
Yeah, John, really no alignment right now with what was agreed to out of the Senate with Republicans. Of course, this was a deal that Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune and a few others on the floor had agreed to via a voice vote, 5 votes that would have funded DHS without ICE and CBP. And House Republicans were very clear just a short time ago, absolutely no deal. I asked Speaker Johnson if that, of course, had been done in consideration with, of course, the White House. Take a listen. President endorsed this plan, Mr. Speaker. Has the president?
I spoke to the president a few moments ago. He understands exactly what we're doing and why, and he supports it.
All right, well, Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has already said that the 60-day continuing resolution that House Republicans want to put forward is dead on arrival in the Senate. And I think it's important to note here, John, that Senate Republicans did try to push through continuing resolutions many times, including, of course, the House passed appropriations, which would have funded DHS through September. That was rejected over and over and over again by Senate Democrats. Now, Senate Democrats didn't walk away with this with anything additional either. They didn't get any of the ICE reforms that Republicans had agreed to in previous offers. That's something that I asked the House Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries about. And there was a Republican offer in the Senate that had some of those DHS reforms. Would something have been better than nothing?
There's legislation in front of us right now to end the airport chaos, and House Republicans should stop blocking it.
I'm talking about ICE reforms. Sorry, I'm talking about ICE reforms. There was a Republican offer.
We have made clear that ICE needs to be brought under control.
All right, now we're in a little bit of a holding pattern right now, John. This plan has to come out of the House Rules Committee before it can go to the House floor. There's a huge hurdle here, and of course, an even bigger problem is the fact that many senators have already gone home. So this is going to, of course, if it passes the House, it's going to have to pull the Senate back too before it gets to the president's desk. John.
All right, Kilmeny Duchardt live for us on Capitol Hill. Kilm, thank you. Right now, airports all across the country are still facing chaos. Today, TSA agents missed their second full paycheck, and many agents calling out due to not being paid. Hard to blame them. Let's check in with national correspondent Alana Austin. She joins us live from Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. Hey, Alana.
Hey, good afternoon, John. And I am hearing from TSA workers and managers here how much of a crisis this is. They're trying to help them out with food pantries, with support for their rent, car payments that are due. And the stress and the strain has caused 500 employees to quit so far. Meantime, there are members of Congress that are leaving town, including Oregon Democratic Senator Ron Wyden. And I caught him as he was on his way to catch a flight. Here's what happened.
Senator, I would love a comment from you, too, on the shutdown situation. What do you think about it? Do you think the House is going to pass it?
I'm just glad that the Republicans agreed to what could have been worked out a number of weeks ago. Thanks.
What do you think? There are some lawmakers that, people aren't happy that they're leaving town. I know there's Easter, there's Passover. Like, what do you think about the criticism?
I think I'm going to leave it at what I said.
So the Senate approved a deal to pay federal employees, but that is not finalized in the House. We're on day 42 of this stalemate over immigration, and some travelers are outraged that lawmakers would leave the D.C. area while this situation remains up in the air.
Atlanta last week was horrible.
Did you have to fly through Hartsfield?
Yes.
What was that experience like? How long did you wait?
TSA pre-check, so it's about 2 hours, but the regular boarding was 4 to 5.
What do you think about the shutdown so far? We're on day 42 and TSA agents haven't been paid for weeks.
Yeah, I think it's a shame, and I wish that all the legislators would find some common ground and make sure that they do their job.
We've heard, sadly, 500 TSA agents now have quit their jobs. Some of them are working Uber as side hustle, selling blood and plasma. What is your reaction to that?
It's shocking. It's so sad that people have to do that, but they're doing what they have to support their families. You got to appreciate that.
Well, other lawmakers have been named and shamed, too. This is bipartisan. Senate GOP Majority Leader John Thune skipping town, and he was called out by a fellow Republican. Florida Congressman Randy Fine posting this video, sharing it, and expressing his disapproval. Also, Tennessee GOP Senator Marsha Blackburn, her office declined to comment. She was also spotted, and that video is quickly going viral. Reporting live in Arlington, Alana Austin, Newsmax.
All right, they are calling out their own Alana Austin for us at the airport, Reagan National Airport in D.C. Let's welcome in former Acting Undersecretary of Transportation for Policy, Joel Szabat. He joins us now. Joel, good to see you.
John, good to be here. Thank you.
So let's talk about President Trump's executive order today to start to pay some of these TSA agents. You could ask why this wasn't done sooner, but does this mean that we can expect to see some of these officers showing back up to work starting Monday?
Yes, but with a caution. Union leadership has warned us that, for all the reasons that we just saw, a lot of these workers have taken second jobs, for cash flow to make, bill payments. And presumably they're on leave maybe till the end of the month to do that. So it could be, 3 days, 4 days or longer before we see them. And also, they won't see that first paycheck until the earliest will be the beginning of next week. So I think we can expect, based on hope, some more people will start coming in over the weekend, but travel will be heavier over the weekend. And so if there's any major alleviation, I would expect to see it begin next week.
I don't know if anything was accomplished by this whole entire shutdown, other than the fact that we've exposed just how thin our airport security system is. Really, I think one of the big takeaways from this is the need to look closer at private security at our airports again.
So we have there's about 400 active commercial airports in the country right now. 20 of them already have private security. San Francisco and Kansas City are the two major ones. And of course, they were not affected by this because their workers are funded by contracts that are not subject to annual appropriations. So they already had the money in place to pay their workers. So they were not affected by another government shutdown.
Is that something you'd advocate for? Do we need more private security at airports across the country? So far the evidence suggests that there's no difference. There's no greater risk with the private or public sector security. The advantage right now seems to be on the funding side, but frankly, that's a man-made problem. One could come up with a situation where TSA agents were paid regardless of whether the government was shut down or not. Yeah, I mean, it does seem, I think when most of the American public looks at what's going on right now, especially if you've been to an airport and have been subject to these lines, you just got to almost pull your hair out and wonder, what the heck is Congress doing? Why are they subjecting us to these political games?
Yeah, so I was caught in Orlando over the weekend, and that was a trouble spot then. The good news today is the trouble spots seem to be smaller than they were before. It's the New York airports and Atlanta that have the longest delays, one of the Houston airports. However, we expect more travel, more spring break travel over the weekend. So we could see another surge of problems. But then hopefully this weekend, but certainly by the end of next week, we would expect it to get better as long as the paychecks get processed and are delivered to the TSA agents.
Yeah, like we said, it is hard to blame people for not showing up to work when they're not getting paid. Joel Szabat, thank you for your time, sir. Great to see you.
Likewise. Thank you, John.
All right, we're following some breaking news out of Jupiter, Florida. Tiger Woods has been involved in another rollover crash. This is according to the Martin County Sheriff's Office. Tiger's current condition has not been made public. There is a news conference scheduled for 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Authorities telling ABC News that there is no evidence of impairment and that the crash was purely an accident. You might remember Tiger was seriously hurt in a 2001 crash in Southern California. Of course, we'll have more updates on this as soon as we get some information, but Tiger Woods involved in a rollover crash near his home in Jupiter, Florida. Coming up, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says how long the Iran war will last. We'll talk about that coming up when the record continues.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Buying a new car? You need WeatherTech. Perhaps a nice used car? You need WeatherTech. Or maybe you're still driving Old Faithful. You need WeatherTech. No matter the age of your vehicle, American-made WeatherTech products are the solution. Because messes don't care what year your vehicle is. See? You do need WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection at WT.com.
Allergy congestion hits me hard.
That's why I Navage.
Navage flushes out allergens, mucus, and germs, even 99% of viruses, in just 30 seconds. Preferred by millions, trusted by doctors. There's only one Navage.
I'm an artist, and I'm in my studio. I'm hearing the ads about Relief Factor, and I've got pain in my neck, and it's getting worse, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and order this. 2 weeks later, and I've got much better range of motion. I'm able to carry these big canvases around. I'm just very, very grateful that I gave the product a try.
If pain is affecting your life, give Relief Factor a try. Call or go online. Get your 3-week quick start for only $19.95. Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor.
It's spring makeover time at Cabinets to Go, now through April 7th. Bring home our newest collections. The timeless style of crisp Harbor Town White, Broad Creek Blue's stunningly bold and classic design, and the cozy warmth of Cotswold linen. At 0% APR for 48 months. That's a new kitchen designed to fit your style, space, and budget, interest-free for 4 years. It's the spring makeover sale now through April 7th. Only at Cabinets to Go. Designed to wow.
Welcome back. In just about an hour from now, President Trump will speak at a Saudi investors forum in Miami. We did get to hear from President Trump earlier today. He announced some new actions to help out America's farmers.
To help lower gasoline prices for farmers and consumers, this week I issued an emergency order to allow immediate sales of E15 and just as I promised in the campaign, I'm seeking congressional action to allow E15 all year round. I'm pleased to announce that the Small Business Administration, that's Kelly, is opening up massive new loan guarantees for farmers and food suppliers.
So the announcement comes amid farmers facing higher costs for fuel and fertilizer amid the Iran war. Speaking of the war, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in France for the G7 summit. President Trump has repeatedly said that NATO members are not doing enough to help the U.S. win this war. Here's what Secretary Rubio said today.
This is not going to be a prolonged conflict.
The objectives I've outlined to you, again, I repeat them, because I see these reports, it's like the news is not clear on what objectives are. We've been as clear as you can possibly be from the very first night of what the objectives of this mission are. We're going to destroy their factories that make missiles and rockets and drones. We're going to destroy their Navy. We're going to destroy their Air Force. And we are going to significantly destroy their missile launchers so they can never hide behind these things to get a nuclear weapon. We are achieving all those objectives. We are ahead of schedule on most of them. And we can achieve them without any ground troops.
All right, so no ground troops there, according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Today is also the second day of CPAC. Host of Frontline Carl Higbie moderated a discussion on Islam today. Watch this.
We've seen this in like Mogadishu, Minnesota, and Dearborn, Michigan, a lot of other places. There's really not a benefit for the taxpayer whatsoever, but there has been a mass Islamification. And once they move in, they move from a minority to a majority. They elect people who then push out lifelong residents. And it's almost to a point where they've been hiding behind the protections of a religious freedom. At what point do we remove religious protections from the over-Islamification of American cities and call it a political ideology?
Foreign Affairs correspondent Alex Salvi joins us live now from CPAC in Grapevine, Texas, with more on what's happening down there. Hey, Alex.
Hey, John, it's good to be with you. A near-packed house here in Dallas, Texas, with the former Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, set to address this crowd any minute now. Now, of course, we know that President Trump will not be addressing CPAC this year. He's going to be keeping his sights narrowly focused on Operation Epic Fury. But still, he and the situation in the Middle East are dominating the discussions here in Texas. Now, as you look around the room, you'll notice that there is a large representation among the Iranian diaspora that is here to show their support for President Trump, but also to make their voices heard. We also see similar movements from Cuba and Venezuela, two countries, of course, we know that President Trump is also trying to liberate from their communist dictatorships there. But when it comes to what is happening in the Middle East right now, when we talk to congregants here, many of them are largely in support of what President Trump is doing, while at the same time hoping that this is a swift yet a successful operation.
Every Iranian is very grateful their country is finally able to taste freedom after 47 years of oppression.
I'm really hoping that it cleans up fast. Sounds like we're taking a lot of teeth out of them.
If they were like 2 weeks away from getting that nuclear bomb, he did what he should have done to protect the country.
I'm all for him. He's doing a great job, and he's trying to keep us from putting ground troops out there, and I think he's going to get it solved.
And in a rather moving moment, Mercedes Schlapp bringing on several women from Iran who detailed their individual experiences with the Iranian regime, whether that be torture or targeting, something that we know that the Islamic Republic has been doing to its own people for over 47 years now. Now, there are also some conversations taking place as to whether the operation in Iran, as well as the president's other endeavors abroad, could complicate some of the domestic issues going into the midterm elections as Republicans look to hold on to the majority in the House and the Senate. But still, when we talk to many of the participants here, John, they are very much so confident that they can overcome the differences, put aside the Republican infighting, and instead unite behind what makes them the same as opposed to focusing on their differences. John?
Yeah, nobody likes to think about the alternative to not uniting behind their common principles. Alex Salvi live for us in Grapevine, Texas. Alex, thank you. Let's welcome in Republican strategist Ford O'Connell and also with us geopolitical advisor Rina Shah. Great to have you both here.
Good to be with you, John.
All right, Rina, first to you. How big of an issue is Operation Epic Fury for the Republican Party? And we're seeing a little bit of the friction there at CPAC. Is this a long-term problem for the GOP?
Well, everybody's talking about body counts and oil prices, and I think this is the angle that no one's saying. This war is quietly strangling the very freedom agenda we claim to defend. Look, I'm the daughter of immigrants who came here for economic opportunity. My dad from Uganda, my mother from India. And I see working families already stretched by inflation, now facing another energy shock because the Strait of Hormuz is a war zone. Endless military engagements without genuine congressional debate don't make America safer. They erode the limited government principles that I believe in and that built this country. We're sending troops while lawmakers dodge votes on war powers. That's not strength, that's abdication.
All right, Ford, let's take a look at this poll we have here. A majority support the attacks against Iran, but they are also against deploying additional ground troops or any ground troops. How do you see this playing out for Republicans as we get closer to the midterms?
Well, I think the number one thing, and Rina did hit on this, is the cost of energy. You want to drive down inflation. The best way to do that is to have oil around $60 a barrel. And basically, the administration has leeway on that front pretty much until Memorial Day, because if you have 3 months of oil at over $90 a barrel, it becomes $4 at the pump, and that makes everything less affordable. Look, I think Donald Trump has got the wiggle room from the base, because in his first term, he didn't have any wars. He's been settling wars left and right. And frankly, between Operation Midnight Hammer and what they did in Venezuela, the base is going to stand behind him through thick and thin. They just might be mashing their teeth a little.
Yeah, I think people are getting nervous already when you start to see gas getting close to $4 a gallon. And President Trump delayed his deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz amid these ongoing talks to try and end the war. Now, if these talks don't work out, President Trump's former Navy secretary had this to say about the consequences.
I think we have a lot of leverage. I mean, there's no doubt that the United States Navy could run those straits, but it's, political intent and national will.
So, Rina, what do you think that means, political intent and national will?
Well, I think the former Navy Secretary is right here. There's no doubt the United States Navy could physically run the Strait of Hormuz, but he nailed the real issue in the next breath. It's not about military capability, it's about political intent and national will. We're watching gas prices spike because 20% of the world's oil is now hostage to Iranian mines and missiles, while American troops deploy and families feel the pain at the pump. Now, look, the deeper failure isn't Tehran's aggression. It's Washington's decades-long habit of half measures without demanding regime change or enforcing clear victory conditions. As someone who's seen foreign policy up close on Capitol Hill, I'll say it plainly. Military power without the will to use it decisively turns strength into expensive theater. True America First leadership means securing energy freedom for American families, not endless negotiations that keep the theocracy in power.
I think, Ford, a lot of people would say in this negotiations might be a little too soon to use that type of terminology since we're, not that far into this. President Trump's still within the 60-day window of the War Powers Agreement.
He is, and he likes to leave all options on the table. I think, look, here's what's going to happen no matter what. You've got to find a way to take control of the Strait of Hormuz, whether you do it as a coalition or some other way to do it. Because the reason is if the regime stays in power, they're going to hold it hostage again. They're in violation of international law because the Strait of Hormuz does not belong to Iran. This is something the rest of the world needs to stand up and understand, because if they can't hold the Strait of Hormuz hostage, they can't fund their proxies. And guess what? The rest of the oil gets to market where it's supposed to be. The one thing I am heartened about is that essentially Pakistan is looking to broker as a mediary in this situation, and they're controlled by China. And you've got the Russians, who are big, allies of Iran, basically turning around and saying, Iran, you got to find a diplomatic solution soon, because that tells me the regime is collapsing.
Yeah, there's not a lot of great options right now. At least it looks like that when you talk about the Pakistanis brokering the peace deal, or at least the passage of these ships to the Strait of Hormuz, and the moving deadlines now at 10 days coming up on Monday, April the 6th. All right, I want to talk about some domestic politics at home here. Democrats still refusing to help President Trump clean up their cities. And you guys might remember the former so-called super mayor, Tiffany Henyard. She said yesterday that her father was shot in Chicago and left seriously injured. She wrote this, quote, at this time, I'm calling on Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson to seriously reconsider federal assistance from President Donald J. Trump to help address this crisis. She went on to say that Memphis, Washington, D.C., New Orleans, they've all gotten safer since they've gotten help from President Trump. The interesting thing about this, and I'm sure, I wish her father the best, but Tiffany Henyard now is actually running for Fulton County Commission in Atlanta, Georgia. That might have something to do with her new approach here. I don't know. What do you think, Rina?
Well, I think I'll say what almost no political commentator will admit about Tiffany Henyard's call for federal troops in Chicago. I mean, this isn't just one former mayor's personal tragedy. It's the brutal, predictable endpoint of progressive governance that has spent years defunding the police, soft on crime policies, and pretending local equity experiments could replace law and order. Her own father, an innocent 65-year-old man, shot in the neck in a random attack in North Lawndale, I believe. Now even she, a Democrat turned Republican, is begging Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson to accept Trump's offer of federal assistance because communities that actually welcomed it, like Memphis or New Orleans, saw real crime drops. I consider myself a pro-freedom voice, and I grew up understanding the immigrant dream of safe streets and opportunity. It still exists. But I see the hypocrisy loud and clear. The same politicians who lecture about systemic problems now watch their own families suffer while rejecting the only help that works. I think Chicago's crime exposes the failure of big government liberalism in blue cities. Real solutions require restoring order, backing the police, and yes, federal backup when local leaders abdicate their duty to protect residents.
Basic common sense stuff. Ford, is the GOP's tent big enough for Tiffany Henyard?
It's big enough. Obviously, she's running in Fulton County where we have absolutely zero presence, as you know, John. I think part of the reason why J.B. Pritzker or Gavin Newsom or some of these others have allowed their cities and states to basically be run by criminals, they have Trump derangement syndrome. And the other problem is, and Rina was hitting on this a little bit, and that is Democrats basically view the criminal as the victim and the victim as the criminal. And that's the entire problem here. And they've got to rethink exactly what they're doing. They want to reimagine everything, and all they're doing is getting more people killed. I don't know why you'd ever want to have your own constituents killed.
Yeah, that is a burning question so many people have when you look at these politicians, the Democrats that put these policies in place. Ford O'Connell, Rina Shah, thank you both. Great to see you.
Thanks, John.
Well, this should not surprise you. A Florida Democrat has been found guilty of House ethics violations. Congresswoman Sheila Surfalis McCormick illicitly funneled millions to her campaign, according to a bipartisan House Ethics Subcommittee. They say she committed various campaign finance infractions. The committee found her guilty of all but 2 of the 27 charges or counts brought against her. Surfalis McCormick says that she looks forward to proving her innocence here. She is also under a federal indictment for allegedly laundering $5 million in FEMA funding. House Republicans believe they have the votes to expel her. That would require a 2/3 vote from the full House. That means Democrats would need to vote to expel her in order for her to actually get the boot from Congress. The last Congress member to be expelled was George Santos back in 2023. Coming up, a top Trump official has his personal email hacked. Who was it and who's behind it? That when the record continues.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
Why go on Roe? Because 1 in 4 guys.
1 in 4 guys. 1 in 4 guys experience ED.
On Roe, ED feels like no big deal. Connect with a provider to find treatment that could be right for you. 100% online.
Roe designed or curated treatments to make ED feel less stressful. There are options to fit every need, like fast-acting dissolvables or daily gummies. If 1 in 4 guys deal with ED,
then 1 in 4 guys should go on Roe.
Guys, connect with a provider at roe.co to see if you qualify.
Mike Capel here, Patriot Software's founder. I started my entrepreneurial journey selling greeting cards door to door when I was 10. At age 16, I had workers' comp insurance for my employees. Some kids were good at sports, but I was a business geek kind of a kid. While other kids were making home runs, I was making money. That's when I learned about capitalism and free enterprise. My 5th successful business, Patriot Software, helps entrepreneurs build their businesses and keep their money. For affordable accounting and payroll, go to patriotsoftware.com.
During the Omaha Steaks Spring Savings Event, prices are going down. Save up to 50% with entrees about $5 per serving. Order now to get 8 burgers free. This spring, watch the prices fall at omahasteaks.com/TV.
My cell phone bill kept going up. I started looking around, what are our other options? With Consumer Cellular, I'm saving over $50 a month. Same coverage, same data, same talk, same cell phone, simple.
So why am I paying way more for a big wireless plan? What am I getting for my money?
Consumer Cellular gives you the same fast, reliable nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
Same tower, same coverage.
I feel like people should know that.
They cut my bill just about in half.
I'm saving almost $100 a month.
That's over $1,000 a year.
Not only did I save money, but our coverage was vastly improved. It was fantastic.
There's got to be a catch, and I'm going to find it by going straight to the CEO himself, Ed Evans. What's up, Ed?
Because we serve primarily the 50-plus market today, we know our customers are going to use a lot less data. We can then set our pricing substantially lower than what the big three are able to do on the exact same networks.
Oh, I love that.
My job is to help you save money on wireless, even if you're on an unlimited plan.
My bill with the big carriers was over $300, and with Consumer Cellular, it's about $100.
Our customers ranked us #1 in network coverage satisfaction. And there's no long-term contracts.
When I look at what I had with Verizon, I'm not sure what I was paying extra for.
And yes, you could keep your number, no problem. Want to bring your phone? That's great too. We'll have you wrapped up in about 20 minutes. Really.
We hadn't gone back. We're not going back. We're with Consumer Cellular.
Call now and see how one of our U.S.-based Switch Pros can cut your bill by up to half. That's right, up to half. When you call right now, you'll even save an additional $25. Just use the code SAVE25. And AARP members save even more. Call 1-800-918-0560. That's 1-800-918-0560.
As Iran continues to fire ballistic missiles at Israel, one Jerusalem hospital has created an innovative way to save and protect lives. Newsmax senior correspondent John Huddy got an exclusive tour of this underground hospital.
Life during wartime in Israel means going underground. This is the Hadassah Mount Scopus Underground Hospital in Jerusalem. With 140 beds, it's a bomb shelter and emergency room all in one. How complicated is this? I mean, it looks pretty complicated.
It's complicated. I think that what's most complicated is actually being able to give the care under such difficult circumstances where everyone is so, like sardines pushed together in a can.
So the different numbers and colors represent different sections of the underground hospital. So on one end you have pediatrics, then you have post-surgery, you have internal medicine, you have orthopedic and rehabilitative services, and then on the far end you have the ICU. Surgeries and labor are in different underground locations. We met Sue, who is in post-op, recovering from knee replacement surgery.
I feel extremely safe because I don't have a safe room at home. So this is in fact safe for them. Yeah.
So maybe you should just stay here.
No.
This was originally supposed to be the parking garage in a new building, but the attacks on October 7th changed that. It was retrofitted for war. While we were here, our alert sounded, warning about this message coming up, warning about possible incoming ballistic missiles, which again emphasizes the reason that this is here. Dr. Rivka Brooks, head of the hospital's pediatrics unit, says many of the children here are dealing with the anxiety and stress from the war. She says there are both Arab and Jewish patients and staff.
And it's all like one big family, and I think it's our little cosmos that shows that it can work out together when people want to. A mother is a mother.
A mother is and a child is a child.
A child is a child,
no matter
and
what side you're on.
It can work.
Yeah, amen. Thank you, doctor.
You too.
In Jerusalem, John Huddy, Newsmax.
All right, our thanks to John Huddy there for that report. Let's welcome in former Chief of Staff to President Trump's National Security Counselor, Fred Fleitz, joins us now. Fred, great to see you.
Hey, John, good to be here.
Well, we were also supposed to be joined by Ruthie Bloom, but she is in Israel and had to run to a bomb shelter, which is what they are having to deal with right now. So, Fred, we'll stick with you and your op-ed that you just wrote. It's titled, European Leaders Now Know What Trump Was Right. Iran was an imminent global threat. And we are still waiting to really see our European allies get fully on board with what President Trump is trying to accomplish. Marco Rubio is at the G7 right now talking to them. Where do you think this goes, Fred, both in the short term and also in the medium term?
I think West European leaders were stunned that Iran has been building missiles to attack their countries, and they now know they don't have missile defenses against them, and that Trump was right. But you know what this also proves, John? The Iranians lie about everything. They haven't just lied about their missile ranges. They've obviously been lying about their pursuit of nuclear weapons. You know, the Supreme Leader said there was a 2,000-kilometer cap on their long-range missiles, but they could actually go 4,000 kilometers. And my article talks about how there are other rockets that may have a range of 6,000 kilometers, easily putting London within range. But the question is, will Europe step up and do what they really need to do and stand with the United States to deal with this threat from Iran? There's some signs they're moving towards us, but I'll tell you, President Trump is still very frustrated.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the American public is frustrated too. And we can't forget, though, Fred, we're not even a month into this campaign yet, and we're already starting to see some people get very antsy about when it's going to end and what it's going to do to gas prices. We can talk more about that in a second, but I also wanted to ask you about this Iranian-linked group of hackers that claims they have hacked into Kash Patel's email. The DOJ claims that Patel's email was in fact compromised. Excerpts are now being published online. How significant is this, and do you think we will see more of this?
Iran has a very sophisticated hacking operation. They've attacked me. They've attacked most conservatives in Washington. They've gone after anyone who's written on the Iranian nuclear program. Doesn't surprise me they're going after former U.S. officials. We really need to be vigilant. And I'll tell you that conservative think tanks I know, they've set up special procedures to make sure that their people don't click on links from people who we don't know, because we know the Iranians and also the North Koreans are very active in this type of attack.
And I don't know if you've had a chance to see any of the materials that have been released from Kash Patel's emails. Anything that you've seen so far that is damaging?
I didn't see anything. It looks like communications with his family. Apparently, he may have been preparing to take a trip to Cuba, but I mean, they leaked stuff. It seemed harmless, but I haven't seen everything.
Okay, we'll keep our eyes on that, Fred. Today's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, we mentioned this earlier. He said the war should last weeks, not months. Do you think we're still on target for that type of campaign? I do. Look,
President Trump has achieved his objectives. He's destroyed Iran's capability to make nuclear weapons. He's destroyed their capability to make more missiles. Iran's going to run out of missiles, and they don't have the facilities to rebuild them. And the experts to start these programs up have been killed. In addition, a pathway for the Iranian people to take over their country has been created. I think this war will be wrapped up in a couple of weeks. That's what Trump wants. He doesn't want an endless war or a quagmire. And, you know, the mark of a good leader, John, is when you recognize you've gotten the job done and it's time to get out and take the win.
Yeah, it's like a painting. That last little stroke of paint can ruin the whole entire thing sometimes. Fred, I wanted to ask you about what you said in the onset of this interview. And, you know, we cannot trust the Iranian regime. They lie about everything, just like you said. So short of removing the regime, how do we ensure that, you know, anything was accomplished by all this?
Well, first of all, you can't change a regime from the air. Everyone knew going in we were not going to remove the government by bombing it. It wasn't regime change. It was regime weakening to give the Iranian people an opportunity to take their country back. And I think a lot of things are being done behind the scenes to help the Iranian people do that. You see stuff on the internet every day of besieged militias and IRGC being killed by Israeli drones. There now are stories of the Iranian people taking out these people on the ground with weapons. They're confiscating weapons from security forces. I don't know how significant this is, but I think the chances of the Iranian people taking their country back are significantly greater. And we're not very far into this operation. It's too soon to know whether this will succeed.
Not yet a month into this operation. Fred Fleitz, great to see you. Thank you.
Good to be here.
2 boats carrying aid to Cuba are missing. The Mexican Navy says that they were searching for the boats and its crew members. The vessels set sail on March 20th from Mexico, and they were set to arrive in Havana on Tuesday or maybe Wednesday of this week. But Mexico says that there has been no communication nor confirmation of the boat's arrival. A distress signal was never sent either. In January, President Trump imposed an oil blockade on Cuba after capturing Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela had been providing Cuba pretty much all of its fuel. In Colombia, an American Airlines flight attendant is reported missing. Fernando Gutierrez was last seen in Medellin on an overnight layover. Last time he was seen was on Saturday. He reportedly went out to a local nightclub. There are concerns that he was kidnapped. Gutierrez was set to fly to Miami. Messages sent to his phone have reportedly not been delivered. Last April, the State Department urged Americans to reconsider travel to Colombia due to an increased risk of crime, terrorism, civil unrest, and kidnapping. Coming up, a bomb was found at a U.S. Air Force base, and the FBI says its alleged culprit, the one who they think placed the bomb there, is now on the run. Where is this person hiding? We'll talk about that when the record continues.
And who do you say that I am?
He is Jesus. To Christians, he's the Son of God. Watch Franco Zeffirelli's epic on the life, death, and resurrection of this man who changed the world. Watch Jesus of Nazareth.
Pump up the volume. Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
Instagram teen accounts with automatic protections.
Bad news, Bulldogs. Sidelined for the season.
Limits on who can contact teens.
Ouch!
How are we gonna win without you?
And content settings now inspired by 13+ movie ratings.
Hey Slater, we're gonna win this one for you, bud.
You up for this?
Instagram teen accounts with automatic protections.
Have you ever thought of getting a walk-in tub for you or someone you love? Now is a great time to take a look at getting a Safe Step walk-in tub.
With Safe Step's standard heated seat and new fast fill faucet, you can enjoy a nice warm bath up to 20% faster. And the convenient touchpad
elected, we wouldn't have a country right now. So you can't do it. So
Okay, we're going to take you live out to Miami now, and President Trump, who just touched down. Let's listen in.
They want to be sure that people aren't coming into our country like they have for the last 4 years. I don't want to say they've ruined it. They made my job a lot harder, and now we have it good. We have crime down. We have everything down. But these are people, some of the worst people. Look at Chicago 2 days ago. They shot this thug, this horrible human being, came in through the Biden open border. They killed this beautiful young girl who's a friend of, whose father was a good friend of Dan Scavino. And it's just happening every single day. These are the worst gang members, the worst killers, the worst. They allowed the worst people. And you know why? Because the country sent them out. When they saw open borders, every country throughout the world, they sent them into a country. And we don't want that. And that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Iran, sir. Iran. What's the latest with Iran, sir?
On Iran, they are being decimated. They are talking. We are talking now. They want to make a deal. Very simply, our military is the greatest in the world by far. Iran is being decimated. Thank you.
All right, President Trump there really walking away this time. He turned to walk to his limo, but came back after a question on Iran, answering that question, reminding everyone there that the president says that Iran is being decimated and that they desperately want to negotiate. As we wait for more information on that, we also saw President Trump talking about Sheridan Gorman, who was the college student from New York but living in Chicago, attending Loyola University, who was killed by that illegal immigrant, just heightening the need to get this funding for DHS passed. Also, we have this pair of siblings that are facing federal charges after they were accused of placing an IED, an improvised explosive device, at the CENTCOM headquarters in Tampa, Florida. One sibling is now in custody here in the U.S. The other is on the run in China. National correspondent Logan Raddick joins us now with more on this story. Logan, what can you tell us?
Well, John, that IED was placed in the visitor center at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and luckily it did not explode. 20-year-old Alan Zhang and his sister Anne Marie are accused of planting an IED on the base that is the headquarters for U.S. Central Command, which is leading the Pentagon's operation in Iran. FBI Director Kash Patel says Alan fled to China and that Anne Marie is in federal custody. Now, the 27-year-old is charged with evidence tampering and helping her brother evade arrest. And Alan, her brother, is charged with attempting to damage government property, unlawful making of a destructive device, and possession of a destructive device. On March 17th, the day after the IED was placed, the Zhang siblings sold their Mercedes-Benz SUV before the younger Zhang fled the country for China. Investigators found residue from the explosive device inside the vehicle, even though it had been vacuumed and cleaned.
On March the 18th, less than 2 days after identifying Zhang, and the search warrant was obtained by the FBI to search Zhang's home, and they found IED components consistent with the bomb that had been placed at MacDill Air Force Base. The agent spoke with Zhang's mother as well as the defendant, Anne Zhang, and both of them conceded that they knew that Zhang had told them, Alan Zhang had told them, that they planted the bomb at MacDill Air Force Base.
Alan Zhang faces 40 years in prison if convicted, and his sister faces up to 30 years if found guilty on her charges. Now, there's no formal extradition treaty between the U.S. and China, meaning that China is not obligated to return Alan Zhang, the alleged mastermind of this bombing plot. So, John, this could be a topic of conversation between President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping when they meet in May, if Zhang is still in China at that time. Back to you.
You would think so. This would certainly come up. Logan Raddick for us live in Washington. Logan, thank you. Coming up, another close call in the sky. Where was this one? We'll talk about that when the record continues.
One tiny candle illuminates 1,000.
Awaken! A Great Awakening. Rated PG-13.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising what followed. In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2026, could a 1929-style market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row.
home of the No Fee for Life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonix Nail Gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonix, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. So effective, it's money-back guaranteed.
The body of one of the pilots killed after Sunday's Air Canada crash has been returned home, according to CBC. The body of First Officer Mackenzie Gunther arrived at the Ottawa International Airport yesterday before being transferred into a hearse. Gunther, along with Captain Antoine Forrest, were both killed when their plane collided with a fire truck while trying to land on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport. And we have another close call in the sky to talk about as well. This time it's in California. According to the FAA on Tuesday, a United Airlines flight just avoided a collision after a Black Hawk helicopter crossed in front of the plane as it was trying to land at John Wayne Airport. Correspondent Joe Moeller joins us live now from Orange, California, with the details on this near miss. Hey, Joe.
Hey there, John. A bit of a scary situation here in Orange County, California. That helicopter and plane came dangerously close over a very residential area here in the city of Orange, a few miles from the airport here in Orange County. And as you can imagine, people in the area are pretty worried to hear about this. I spoke to one man who actually heard that helicopter the other night.
You know, it was loud. It wasn't like a normal police helicopter. So I thought, when I was out here waiting for my Uber ride, and to hear something like that's kind of nerve-wracking.
This happened Tuesday night just before 9. A United Airlines flight from San Francisco with 168 on board encountered a National Guard Army Black Hawk helicopter crossing its path on its final approach to John Wayne Airport in Santa Ana. When pilots were warned and received an automated collision alert, they leveled off to avoid a disaster from happening. Well, the aircraft ended up just over a quarter-mile apart and 500 feet vertically. Now take a listen to this. In the air traffic control audio, you can hear a controller actually say, "That was not good."
Did you get just a traffic call reference to the helicopter, or did they restrict your altitude or anything?
We had a resolution advisory for United 589 RA.
Okay, so you guys had an RA. Okay, thank you. And we're going to be addressing that because that was not good.
He said it there, that is not good. Well, the FAA is investigating whether a new rule limiting visual separation between planes and helicopters was in effect. Earlier this month, controllers were told to rely on radar instead of the old see and avoid method. The change follows a January 2025 crash between a Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines regional jet near Reagan National Airport in D.C. that killed 67 people. The National Guard helicopter here in Orange County was headed to Los Alamitos, reportedly on a mission. The good news, no injuries to report here, but a scary situation here in Orange. I'll send it back to you, John.
Yeah, scary. You think about, too, the collision over Reagan National Airport, too, also involving a Black Hawk helicopter. A lot of close calls out there. Joe Moeller live for us in Orange County, California. Joe, thank you. Well, coming up, tourists are having a shocking impact on locals in the Bahamas. More on that when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higby from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen. This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do.
The Inogen creates portable oxygen from the air around you. When you have an Inogen, live life on the go.
I love this. And I love my Inogen because it lets me see this.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Give us a call right now. We'll answer all your questions. We'll send you an information guide, and if you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free.
I took a 10-day, 3,000-mile road trip with my trusty Inogen. I always call it my trusty Inogen. I do trust it.
This gives me the oxygen that the doctor prescribed for me.
You can continue to drag heavy and awkward oxygen tanks when you leave the house, or use the latest in medical technology to get the oxygen your doctor prescribed anytime you leave home. So give us a call. Try an Inogen system of your very own for 30 days, risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
This Inogen really works. You got to get off the couch and get one.
Wouldn't you rather have this than a tank? Really?
Pick up the phone, call the Inogen company. They're going to take care of you.
Call 1-800-606-1546 or visit Inogen.com.
Are the tourists in the Bahamas feeding cocaines to sharks? Well, a new study says yes, but not on purpose. The study published in the Journal of Environmental Pollution found that some sharks in the Bahamas have traces of cocaine, caffeine, and painkillers in their systems. These sharks did not go on a drugstore or to a dealer to get these substances. Researchers believe waste from tourists consuming these products ended up in the water, and then ultimately they were consumed by the sharks. This might sound like the makings of a scary movie, but so far researchers say they don't know how the cocaine or caffeine impacts the shark's behavior just yet. Maybe they'll study that soon. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is up next. Stay with Newsmax.